Okay, so today in class, what we did was we took these shapes that you see right now, and we learned about how to sort them. When we started, I let you put them in whatever group you wanted to, and some people came up with, when they sorted them into 4 different groups, I asked you to name the groups that you put them in to tell me why you put them in that group. Some people came up with weird or funny or good. Okay, and then when we asked other people to put the same shapes into the weird group, it was difficult because weird is an opinion or good is an opinion. So I asked everybody to come up with ways that we can sort these shapes about things that we already know that are not opinions, and we came up with 2 main categories. So if we're looking to sort shapes, we need to look at 2 things. They are the lines of the shapes and the angles of the shapes. Okay? Now, within this, there are different ways to look at it. So if we look at the lines of shapes, we can see that some lines are longer than others, like this line and this line are not the same size. Or some lines are exactly the same length, like this shape has 4 lines that are the same length. This shape has 4 lines that are the same length. But this shape, clearly the lines are different. This shape, all 4 lines are different. In this shape, we have sets of lines that are the same. Okay? So the length of the lines is one of the things. The length of the lines is one way to categorize shapes. Another thing with lines that we talked about was how the lines touch each other. Because in order to make a shape, the lines have to touch each other in order to make angles or corners. So when we look at this, there are 4 lines, and 2 lines, this line and this line, are parallel. This line and this line will intersect. They will intersect if they keep going. These lines will never touch. Okay, so sets of lines is another way to identify it. This set and this line and this line make a set because there's 2, and they will eventually touch each other. This line and this line make a set because there's 2 of them, and they will never touch, which makes them parallel. If you look at this line and this line, they do touch each other, but they touch each other in a specific way of the fact that they make a 90-degree angle. And those lines are called perpendicular lines. Okay? So another way to identify shapes is by their lines and the sets of lines. By their sets of lines. Right? Now, the other main way, so again, those were lines, how you use lines to identify shapes. Now, this is how you use angles to identify shapes. So we have 3 types of angles that we work with most of the time: right, acute, and obtuse. Okay, so you separate shapes by whether or not they have right angles. So you see this shape in number 5 has all right angles, and you see this shape in number 8 only has some right angles. It's only got 2 right angles right here and a right angle right here. The other 2 lines, other 2 angles are obtuse and acute. Okay, this shape has no right angles. All of the lines are either acute or obtuse. This shape has all right angles. All 4 angles are right. So separating shapes into whether or not they have all right angles, some right angles, or all acute and obtuse. And you say that because you can never just have all acute angles or all obtuse angles in a quadrilateral. Okay? So now here's now we're going to look at different kinds of shapes, and I want you to look at them and tell me what they have in common. So we're not sorting shapes. I'm actually going to give you the shapes, and you're going to tell me what they have in common. So let's look at these three shapes. Look at these three shapes and tell me, what do all three of these shapes have in common if we're thinking about the lines and the angles? That's what we're looking at, the lines and the angles, okay? So what do these three shapes have in common? Okay, if you notice, they all have, the only thing that they have in common is this one has a right angle, but nothing else has right angles. This has acute and obtuse. This has acute and obtuse, but no right angles. So they don't have that. All three of them don't have that in common. Their lines are not the same. They don't have parallel lines. They only have intersecting lines. So this one has a perpendicular line, but no other shape has a perpendicular line. The only thing that all three of these shapes have in common is they have four sides. Okay, now, a four-sided shape is called a quadrilateral. So any four-sided shape is a quadrilateral, no matter how long the sides are, no matter what the angles look like. Quadrilateral. Okay? All right, here are the next shapes I want you to look at. What do these three shapes have in common? Well, all of these shapes have four sides. All of these shapes have all right angles. They have two sets of lines. So, four sides, all right angles, two sets of parallel lines, and all sides are the same length. Okay? So, there you go. That's what all of these have in common. They all have four sides. Every angle is a right angle. All the lines in the shape are parallel, and all the sides are the same length. All right, here's the next group of shapes I want you to look at. Okay, what do these three shapes have in common? They have four sides. They have all right angles. They have two sets of parallel sides. And they have, their sides are not the same. All right? So I don't know how we can quite say that. We can say they have two sets of sides that are the same. All right, but all sides are not the same because this is longer than this side right here is longer than this side, and this side right here is longer than this side. So that's that one. All right, so four sides, all right angles, and two sets of parallel sides. And the sides do not have to be the same. What do these three have in common? They have four sides. They have all acute and obtuse angles. Oops, spelled acute wrong. Look at that. Silly me. And they have all sides are the same length. Okay. The last one is they all have two sets of parallel sides. Okay, oops, sorry, I was supposed to be naming these as we went. So let's name this one. So what is a shape called if it has four sides, it only has acute and obtuse angles, all sides are exactly the same length, and all the sides are parallel, two sets of parallel sides? This is called a rhombus. A lot of people just look at it and say a diamond, but a diamond is technically a rhombus. Okay, let's go back to the previous page. All right, this one was called a rectangle. All right, so if it's got four sides, all right angles, and two sets of parallel sides, but the sides are not the same length, it's called a rectangle. Okay, this is four sides, all right angles, two sets of parallel lines, and all sides the same length is called a square. Okay. Now, what do these have in common? Well, they all have four sides. This one has a right angle. This one has all right angles, but this one doesn't have any right angles. This one doesn't have any right angles. These sides are the same length. These sides are the same length, but this is not the same length. What else could I say? Well, let's look parallel. These sets are parallel, and these sets are parallel. These sets are parallel, and these sets are parallel. Same thing here. This one and this one is a set of parallel lines, and this is a set of parallel lines. So, two sets of parallel lines. And there's nothing else that they have in common. So what is this called? If it's four sides and it's all their lines are parallel, that's called a parallelogram. Parallelogram. Any shape where all the sides are parallel is a parallelogram. All right. And that's all.